Hey, everybody, Russell Martin here with Student Ministry Conversations. And just a quick kind of reminder, it's summer. I know that things are busy. I know you are probably listening to this maybe on the way to a camp or maybe as you're finishing up a big night that you did at your youth group and you don't have time for a long, drawn out podcast episode. Uh, just something quick for you. But before that, I do encourage you when you do have some time, go back and listen to all of our podcasts at studentministryconversations.org. A wealth of resources. Also connect with us online at Talk Student Men on your social media platforms. But the first thing I want to do, or what I want to do with you today, is just talk to you about ways that you can empower your volunteers. It may be summer and you may have given some of your volunteers the time off. I know that we would fire our volunteers at the end of the school year in May, at the end of May, and we would invite them back and give them a summer off, and then they would come back in the school year when it started back up in August. And you may have some who hang around, and so maybe this is something you do for your volunteers now, or it may be something that you can file away and keep in mind for your volunteers. But the first thing is this: the first thing is that volunteers need an opportunity to help. When I was first starting off in youth ministry, I remember being at a church, and I was the youth director. I was hired to be the youth director, right? And so I was doing everything. And so we would have a night for youth on a Sunday night, and I would be the one who showed up early and opened the doors and go to the store and get the food and get the game stuff out and print the lessons and adjust the lights and set up the chairs and do everything. And because that's what I was supposed to do. And I've had a young couple who said, "Hey, Russell, we'd love to help." And I was like, "Great, come help." And so they would show up and they would stand there while I set up the chairs and set up the food and did all the things. And this happened a couple of different times. And they finally came to me and they said, "Hey, what do we do? We'd like to help." And they asked, "Do you really need us?" And so, in an effort to make everything easy for them to help, easy for them to pour into the kids and stuff, I was actually taking away the things that they were good at. And I think it was I'm not sure who said this, but says that if you're doing something someone else can do, maybe you're keeping them from being in ministry or doing what they've been called to do. And so I encourage you. The first thing you can do is to give them an opportunity to find out what their gifts are. And their gifts may be setting up chairs. Their gifts may be food. And that I know for me, I'm grabbing a package of cookies and putting a 2 liter of something on a table, but they may have the gift of setting that up and making it look welcoming. They may have be gifted for lights or sound or whatever. And if you or a couple of your staff are doing all of those things, you might not be making it easy on them as you think you are. You might be taking away the gifts and not allowing them to use the gifts that they have. So it's not going to be everything, but I encourage you to get to know your volunteers and find out what they are good at. And the scary thing is probably they are better at some things than you are. And so by you doing it, you're actually providing a lesser experience or a lesser thing for your students because so and so could do it so much better, and you're just doing it. And maybe sometimes I did that out of pride. Sometimes I did that out of obligation or expectation. But I encourage you to check with your volunteers and help them have ownership in that. That's not just your volunteers, but that's your key youth leaders as well. The second thing I would say is volunteers need to be appreciated. I know that I can go the whole time and think I'm saying thank you and think I'm saying that I appreciate people, but it really doesn't come across. And so with the craziness of your program and putting out fires and talking to students, and it's easy to not notice your adult volunteers, especially those who do step in and are helping. And sometimes it just becomes what they do and it becomes part of your night and they're always there. And so you don't have to make a big, huge, grand gesture. Um, but you need to know about your volunteers. And maybe that's just setting aside some time once a month or once every 2 months, go through a rotation depending on how many you have and take them out to lunch or to a coffee or something and just get to know them. You don't have to buy them huge gifts, but getting to know them, getting to know more about them for who they are, not just what they do for your youth group. Something else you can do is set up an area in your youth room, maybe once a month or once every 2 months, that has some gifts. Maybe that's a candy bar with some sayings on it. Maybe that's a small gift that they can pick up, or something for them just in a side room or something like that. And the easiest thing you can do is just commit to write thank you notes. Maybe you say, hey, every week I'm going to write 5 thank you notes, and that's going to be to some parents who have stepped up. That's going to be to some of my key volunteers. That's going to be maybe to some staff members who did something for your group or who empower your group in somehow. So that would be the second thing, is that volunteers need to be appreciated. Uh, the third thing I'm going to say is that volunteers need to be equipped. Uh, all too often, we find volunteers for youth ministry, or you may have experienced this yourself, where you first came into youth ministry and you happened to be the person who raised their hand, and they were like, "Great, you're young, you're youthful, go be the youth director," and they gave you no tools or no things to help equip you for ministry. Um, and it's scary. I know there's volunteers who won't step up because they're like, I don't want to have to create my own Bible study, or I don't have to do this, or I don't have to do this. And there may be some who are gifted at doing those things. But the more you can equip your volunteers. So one of the things that we would do is we had binders, and those binders had all the lessons, and they had the questions we were going to use, and they had the full lesson for those who wanted to go deeper. They had the quick lesson for those who could just show up right at time. And just equipping them in those ways. Provide them lists of games, short games that they can do in their youth group, with their small groups or whatever. Get the supplies together that they're going to need, and put them all in an area so your volunteers can come up for small groups. If that's what we're talking about, they could come up and they could grab their game, their table, their equipment, anything they're going to need for their small groups. And then also equipping them would also mean taking time to train with them. Set aside once a month, once every 2 months, something where you can pour in to them and maybe teach them ways to lead small groups, how to arrange your room. We have a volunteer here at my church now who uh, has all these little like games that she uses to help students draw out their responses. And so maybe it's an Uno card and it has a 2 on it. You have to share 2 things about yourself or something. And so she uses those things, and so she has started equipping, and we've asked her to talk to the rest of the youth leaders. So equip them not only in what they need for the night, but equip them in with skills that they can transfer and use as they keep going. Last thing for the equipping is equipping them to do ministry. So one of the things that we would do is we had a Google Calendar, a shared Google Calendar, and it was just students' events. And so it was all the home games for the football, for all the age levels, all the volleyball games, any of the golf tournaments or cross country tournaments, or whatever it was, that we had a shared Google Calendar. And so we equipped our volunteers to do ministry of presence by visiting students. Because we put all those things in one place, and they could look quickly and do that. So, what are the ways you can equip your volunteers? The third thing, or the fourth thing, I think, is going to be that volunteers need feedback. Um, how do your volunteers know when they are doing a good job? How do you know when they have succeeded? One of the things that we have used often is Grow curriculum, and in there they define a success or a win as when a student takes a step of faith. And maybe that's a small step. Maybe that's volunteering to pray for the first time. Maybe that's volunteering to lead a small group for the first time. Whatever it is, but communicate with your volunteers what a win looks like. And those are going to be different. Maybe that's a win. You're defining a win as when the group grows, or when the group splits, or when the youth. One of the things I defined a win in my youth group was when the youth band was able to completely lead themselves. Set those goals. and then work toward those goals, define those, but find a way to evaluate and regularly celebrate those wins. And this would also go back to the meeting with your user with your volunteers. Meet with them one on one or in groups and talk about, hey, what are the wins? What and what can I do to help you win? How can I equip you? What do you need? And so as you get feedback, they need feedback for how they are doing, and you need for them to give you feedback as you talk with the students and how the whole program is going. And the last thing I'm going to say is provide opportunities for training. Um, Opportunities for training can be everything from a youth ministry conference, and we have several that we have been to here on the Student Ministry Conversations podcast group. That could be connecting them to resources. That may be, hey, send them the link to this podcast and say, hey, here are some episodes that I think would be helpful for you. Or maybe that's a book. There's a book, Help, I'm a Small Group Leader, and other books that would train them. So kind of equipping, but also training is a little more. You're providing resources and training, and maybe that's doing your own training. I know there's the National Youth Day of Youth Ministry that the Download Youth Ministry crew does. But whatever that is, find opportunities to pour into your volunteers because you're asking them to pour into students, and so training them periodically but regularly is a big thing. And finally, bonus, but something you should never forget about: pray for your volunteers. So as you get them and you know them and you learn what they're going through and things, pray for them, pray for their families, pray for their health. You need healthy volunteers for you, but you also want them to be healthy for them. Pray for their lives, pray for their goals, pray for um, them being small group leaders, and that they can pour into their students and pour into their ministry, and pray for their faith that they grow, and so that they're pouring into their students as well. So there are probably many, many more ways that you can equip your volunteers for ministry. We would love to hear them. So if you have ways that you are pouring in, or if you have specific ways in each of these areas, are there specific ways that you create opportunities for your volunteers to help? What are those? How do you train them in whatever it is you need for the night, whether that's running sound or something, or whether that's being a lead for your uh, volunteers. You may have a volunteer coordinator. That may be something that somebody is good at. So what are the ways that you are creating opportunities? What are the ways that you appreciate your volunteers? We would love to hear that. That would be a great whole podcast episode. If some of you could share, hey, here's how we show our volunteers appreciation. Here's some neat gifts, and here's some things that we do that you don't really think about. How do you equip your volunteers? How do you gain feedback? And how do you do that training for them? We would love to hear all of those. Um, it's middle of June, and right now, again, you are probably in the middle of your summer stuff. But I encourage you to start thinking about this now, because you are. If you're like anything planning ahead at all, you're already thinking of the fall, and you're already thinking of your small groups, and you're already thinking of the events you're going on. And so I encourage you to start thinking about these things. How are you going to equip them? How are you going to train them? How are you going to find them? Um, and that's another thing, is how do you find volunteers, and where do you do that? So I plan to be back with another short episode talking about finding those volunteers. Um, but start praying about that now. I encourage you. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're in this. I'm glad you're doing ministry, and I'm praying for you with whatever camp or trip or retreat or mission trip that you are on. And I pray that you are fully focused there. But when you get back, that you take time to start thinking about the fall, and then how you can equip and encourage and empower your volunteers for ministry. Thank you for joining me for this really short episode. And I just wanted you to know that we are praying for you and encouraging you. Again, this is a great resource. We have 200 plus episodes here a lot of interviews, a lot of different ideas. And so I encourage you to, while you're traveling, this may be a great thing to pop in an episode and listen a bit. Studentministryconversations.org. You can find notes and you can find resources more about this conversation and all the others. So we hope you have a great rest of your summer.